This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviat. Tonight we're taking your calls and questions about bankruptcy and financial problems. If you're worried about how you're going to get your bills paid, you're starting to think about maybe talking to a bankruptcy lawyer, tonight's your chance to ask questions. Maybe you need to know what bills to pay. Maybe you're worried, would you lose your home? Call in the 31 Law Call number 256-536-0077. We'll also have some email questions to join that as well. Getting us started tonight, we've got Will League from Senior Timberlake and League. Glad to have you here tonight.
All right, Sharon, talking about debts. You know, when we come into the debt world, you know, we don't do bankruptcy stuff, but if we get a verdict against someone and they don't have insurance, how do they pay that? How do we go about collecting a verdict? You know, oftentimes the hard part's, you know, collecting it, not obtaining the verdict, depending on the facts of the case. And we'll talk about, you know, if you find yourself deep in child support, debt, medical bills, you know, should you file bankruptcy? What are your options? You know, will you go to jail for having credit card debt? You know, is it just a breach of contract claim or something criminal to it? We got an excellent expert with us tonight. We've got Melissa Mitchell with us. Melissa, thank you for staying up with us tonight and talking about bankruptcy and debt issues, which it's not uncommon. A lot of people live in paycheck to paycheck. Things happen. Your car insurance due. You have uninsured medical bills, and they come to see you. What's the typical case that you see?
Well, there can be a lot of different things, Will. Usually people are behind on a car payment, house payment, things like that. Even though the economy is doing better, there's still a lot of people out of work, and they really need some help sometimes.
And before we get into our calls tonight, but there's the number 256-536-0077. We've got tonight's You Make the Law Call video. We pull out some video and we show you some things we want you to take a look at. This one is coming to us from YouTube. Okay, a long drive, it's easy to get distracted or just zone out for a few seconds. We've all done that, but losing focus behind the wheel is so dangerous, can lead to a collision like we just saw. In this case, 3 collisions. So will the distracted driver be responsible for the damage in this case? Can you tell? Will, you guys do, it just gets worse.
I haven't even seen this, that's right.
You guys do personal injury cases, auto accidents, and I know that you say so many people are distracted, it's terrible right now.
You know, distracted driving is a big problem. You hear lawyers talk about it all the time. And basically, you know, before phones, yeah, we'd see rear-ender collisions, but now with texting and driving, emailing, YouTube, all the streaming and everything that you've got on your vehicle, I guess we're just going to see the windshield wipers go. And so if you're texting and driving, you know, it's equivalent to being drunk in terms of reaction time and things like that. And so basically what we do is if we file the case, we get subpoena power. We'll obtain the data from the defendant's cell phone and determine how fast that phone was going at the time. We'll get the latitude, longitude, and find out on the GPS coordinates how fast the phone was going. If it went from 60 to 0, we know there was no braking. Sometimes there's black box systems to see when the brake was applied relative to the wreck. And so oftentimes we'll obtain that information. So if you're distracted driving, not only are you negligent, which creates compensatory damages, medical bills, pain and suffering, time off work, all the things to try and put you back together. But if you're texting and driving, you know it's dangerous and you do it anyway, you can be liable for what's called punitive damages to punish you and prevent that type of conduct in the future. You know, and Sharon, we're seeing a lot of cases where it was just a fender bender, and now it's a significant high impact wreck, and we're having death cases and finding out people are, you know, watching videos, streaming all kinds of stuff. So
it's so tempting.
It's a big problem, and yes, you're liable. And you know, maybe it's green. If you drink and drive and you kill someone, you could go to jail. If you're texting and driving, you know, it's an issue. You don't want to hurt anybody or yourself or your family. So, and there's ways for us to find out. So be careful.
We have got our expert tonight, Melissa Mitchell, is with us. She does bankruptcy, and that's what we're answering questions about tonight, and thank goodness she's here. So if you're thinking about bankruptcy and the possibility of that, Melissa, talk to us a little bit about, there are different kinds of bankruptcy. Do I need to know what kind of bankruptcy I'm looking for when I come to see somebody like you?
No, you don't, and it's really better if you don't. A lot of people get the impression that if they have a relative that did a particular type of bankruptcy, they come in with a preconceived notion of what they think they need to do. And we really need to look at your individual situation and apply the best type of bankruptcy for your situation. It really isn't a one-size-fits-all.
So we've got callers waiting. I think it's Lakin on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Lakin. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hi, I got in a car crash and it was my fault. And right now, I have a verdict against me for $30,000, and I don't have insurance, so I'm not sure how I'm going to pay for that. So I kind of wanted to see what y'all thought about what my options could be.
Okay. Car accidents and things like that, is that something that you can bankrupt out of, Melissa?
It is, as long as the judgment, as long as there's no real property that the judgment's been recorded and attaches to, then that's just considered, a judgment is just unsecured debt if it doesn't attach to something. So those kind of judgments could be gotten rid of in bankruptcy.
Melissa, is there a distinction between punitive conduct and compensatory on whether or not it's bankruptable?
There can be. There are some specific exceptions in the bankruptcy code, like drunk driving. If you are convicted of drunk driving and you have a damage award against you, things like that can be accepted from discharge, but just a normal breach of contract, some typical judgments, those are not accepted from discharge. Usually things that are accepted are either just some type of egregious conduct or some type of fraud.
You know, and that's an important, you know, lesson you need to have. First off, it's the law. Have motor vehicle insurance. If you get sued like Lakin did, then you would immediately let your carrier put them on notice, and they would defend you and indemnify you or pay any judgment against you. So you want to go back and make sure you've got that coverage and make sure to give it to your insurance company. If you do not have coverage, they can file post-judgment interrogatories to find out what assets you have, any real property, anything like that Melissa was talking about. So you may want to sit down with a lawyer similar to Melissa who does bankruptcy, find out if that's an option for you. But again, without coverage, a lot of people can't just stroke a $30,000 check without insurance. That's even more important to obtain that type of coverage.
We've got Howie on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Howie. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yeah, I have a question about lawsuit debts.
Okay.
If someone has a lawsuit against them in district court where there's a jurisdictional limit and they lose the case or appeal it to the circuit court, does the jurisdictional limit still apply for the district court, or is the new circuit court limit? And it was the original district court case was filed under the old jurisdictional limit, which I understand on September 1st was increased. Would it increase to the new limit?
So how is it 20,000 in district court?
Well, it used to be 10,000.
Right.
Suit was filed with it under 10,000, and I assume that means that the case is limited to 10,000 even still, because it was filed before September 1st.
Right, it would be grandfathered in. So if that particular case was appealed up to circuit court, and as he's talking about state court, you've got small claims court, district court, limit of 20,000, and then the jurisdiction for the circuit court and state court is, you know, relatively unlimited. It's got to be above that. If you appeal a case from district to circuit, I'm going to go with, and I'm 78% sure, that you still have the original jurisdiction requirements as the district court that was originally filed. Because if that wasn't the case, you could file a case and get a new shot, trial de novo, with a higher jurisdictional limit, which I don't think would work.
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Marie on the line with a question from Athens. Hi, Marie. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes. I have some neighbors that tore my fence down and tore my chain link fence down and took it away. And they put up a fence that is on my property line,
Okay.
and they're claiming it as theirs. What can I do about it?
All right. Fence problems. They always say good fences make good neighbors, right? But it
right.
never seems to go well.
Do you have an accurate survey showing that it's on your land?
I did when I bought the property.
Okay. Go back to those closing documents, that file you've got somewhere, see if you got a survey, and you want to make sure that fence is on your property or right on the line. If so, there's something called adverse possessions. It's rarely invoked, but if they own and operate or openly possess your land, they can actually obtain ownership if they do it open and obvious. They're caring for the fence, mowing the grass, all that, paying taxes. It can be their property. So you want to talk to a lawyer and say, look, this is on our property, here's the survey, and ask them to remove it. If they don't, then you can file a lawsuit, and usually they may have to pay your attorney's fees to do that if that, it costs your expense to go through litigation. Hopefully they'll be reasonable, but you never know.
Melissa, let's talk a little bit about what it's like going to court over bankruptcy cases. What is court like for somebody who's going through bankruptcy?
Melissa, you are in federal court, no juries. Is that right in the bankruptcy world?
That's correct. It is federal court, but we have a specific bankruptcy court and our own bankruptcy judge. Right now, we are doing court back in person, but one of the only things that most people have to go to when they do a bankruptcy is called their creditors meeting. Normally court, the attorneys handle, and the judge really doesn't want people to be losing time from work to go to court. But for those creditors meetings, we found during the pandemic, we did those by telephone, and we found that it worked so well that we are still doing those by telephone, and we don't have a plan to stop that. So right now, the only meeting that you have as a debtor in bankruptcy is that telephone meeting, and it makes it much simpler and easier on people to be able to participate.
Yeah. Okay, when we come back, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how bad does it have to be? When do you know that you should be going to see a bankruptcy lawyer? So stick with us in the 31 Law Call number 536-0077. We'll be right back.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call, where lawyers come to help. Your rights, your calls, live. Hosted by family law attorney Sharon Doviet. With the personal injury attorneys of one of the Valley's most respected law firms, Timberlake and League. Featuring the knowledge of managing partner Michael Timberlake, with millions of dollars awarded to his clients. And the experience of attorney Will League, a strong courtroom fighter known for his commitment to winning. And the fellow partners of Timberlake and League Heath Brooks and William Meservey. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Joviet. We've got with us Will League, and we've also got with us Melissa Mitchell, who is a bankruptcy attorney. He's spending the evening with us, answering questions for folks who are having financial problems. Before we get into that, I wanted to brag on you guys. Will League and Michael Timberlake won an award, Lawyer of the Year award, and decided to celebrate that with their staff.
Can't do it. We were honored. We were honored to do it. It's something voted on by our peers, and it was really cool. But we took our staff out to the lake. It's stressful on them. People are calling. Cases are being filed. Discovery, depositions, paper war, all of it. And we took some time. Oh, there's Jessica, one of our awesome paralegals, and we just took a little time to thank our staff. And there's Jessica again.
Was that on a Monday?
That was on Monday. So we played hooky on Monday. There was no trials. And so Timberlake and League, we were all chilling out at the lake, and we really appreciate all our staff and everything they do. And it's a stressful environment, and people are, needing our help, and they really do a great job. So thank you guys.
Congratulations to you. Melissa Mitchell with us, answering questions about bankruptcy. Melissa, how do you know that it's bad enough that you need to go see a bankruptcy lawyer? What's the line in the sand?
Well, I think the best time is before you really are convinced that you need one, because I think that if you go ahead and go early, you can find out what your options are and maybe some things to avoid. A lot of people will try to borrow themselves out of debt. They'll think I can go take out another loan and pay the loans that I have, and that very seldom works.
Melissa, I don't know much about it, but 7 is a liquidation, and then 11 maybe a reorganization. How do you know which one? I mean, if somebody waits to come to see someone like you, and lets it get too bad, they won't have the option to reorganize and maybe not have that on their credit, and would be limited to a liquidation. What's the difference in those two, and what's the consequences?
Okay, so a Chapter 7 is the type of bankruptcy where you just wipe out most of your debts. There could be secured debts like a car or a house that you keep, and you keep making those payments. A Chapter 13 is the individual reorganization. You can cut it close, but if you get into an office and see someone, you can still reorganize your debt, even if you've waited too long.
Okay. We've got Mike on the line with a question from Gurley. Hi, Mike. Thanks for waiting. What's your question tonight?
My question is that about 5 years ago, I got in some trouble with the IRS. And I had to claim my Chapter 13.
Okay.
So they set me up a payment plan, and I've been paying it on time. I've got one more year to go.
Good.
And my question is that a lady that said she worked for the IRS is telling me that after I get it all paid for, that I can file for the penalties and interest back.
Okay.
Can he claim that, Melissa?
Well, I have to admit, I've never heard of that. And if you're communicating with somebody from the IRS, they're really not supposed to be reaching out to you right now. So I might question whether or not that's accurate.
So most of the time you're going to get an email or a letter, and so if you get somebody calling and saying, hey, you can get interest and dividends taken off your tax return or whatever, is that usually a scam, Melissa, something like that?
It really usually is. As a general rule, the IRS won't ever call you. They'll send you a letter. They usually won't even send you an email. So if somebody calls and indicates that they can help you with the IRS, they are not from the IRS.
Okay, careful with it, Mike. We've got Carol on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Carol. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes. My license were pulled from my doctor because of my health reasons.
Okay.
If for some reason I got pulled over if I was driving, what would be the penalty for that?
All right, so the doctor said, hey, you're no longer safe to drive?
I've already sent my license to Montgomery, but it's about time for me to get them back. So I'm not sure.
Why would you send it to Montgomery to get it back? Did you surrender your license and you want to get another one back? Tell me, explain a little bit.
Yes, they told me I had to surrender my license.
Okay.
Because I could not drive anymore until my doctor.
Okay. In the interim, if you've surrendered your license, and the interplay between the doctor going ahead and saying you're unsafe and the driver's license requirement, that's something we'll have to look into. But if you surrender your license, you can be charged with driving without a license. Same thing as suspended license. If you don't have a license, you can be ticketed. If it's a few more times, then the punishment will increase. And so get back to your doctor, see if you can send something down to the Alabama Licensing Department and see if you can get that license back. But be careful driving. Well, don't drive. I guess I can't tell you be careful. Don't drive if you don't have a license, because it is a criminal act.
Okay, we got this email question.
Misdemeanor though, not nobody's going to prison, I don't think, unless you do it a bunch.
We got this email from Cindy. Cindy had written in, I let my mother have 2 credit cards in my name about 5 years ago. She completely messed up my credit. Now I know it's in my name's on the cards, and I'm responsible, but I don't have the money to pay them. What can I do? All right, Melissa, what can she do with these credit cards?
Well, I can say for certain that we can probably do something. Okay, there's usually always some type of help that bankruptcy is going to give you, but unfortunately, just knowing that there's 2 credit cards is not enough information. We need to look globally at what her situation is to know what would be the best option for her.
Are you seeing more people filing for bankruptcy now? Are there trends in bankruptcy filings?
There usually are, and bankruptcy filings are starting to increase. During the pandemic, they really slacked off because of all the help that people were getting. The stimulus checks, the extended unemployment, the forbearances with the mortgages. Now all those things have ended, and so people are really starting to get in harder and harder situations.
Talk to us about some of the things that you cannot bankrupt out of. So Mike had the questions about the taxes. Can you bankrupt out of taxes? Can you bankrupt out of student loans? How about child support and things like that? What can you not get out of?
You cannot, right now, you cannot get out of student loans unless there are a few exceptions, and that relates to a hardship, and that standard is really, really hard to meet. I don't know of anyone who's been able to bankrupt out of student loan debt. Child support, you absolutely cannot get rid of child support. You can do the type of bankruptcy of Chapter 13 where you have a structured repayment plan, but you can't get rid of it. And taxes, you can sometimes get rid of taxes. It really depends on the age of the taxes. The things that I would say about that is a lot of times people, when they think they're going to owe taxes, just won't file their taxes. From a bankruptcy standpoint, the clock never starts running if you don't file those taxes. But if you go ahead and file them, even though you owe, you may ultimately be able to get rid of some of those taxes through bankruptcy.
Oh, interesting.
That
If
is
you don't
interesting.
file, it may be worse for you. Okay, we've got Tammy on the line with a question from Flat Rock. Hi, Tammy. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yeah, I went on disability a year and a half ago or so,
Okay.
and they give me W-2s, and somebody told me I didn't have to file taxes when I went on disability, but do I or not?
Now,
And I got another question or two if you have time for them.
Go ahead and throw them out there, Tammy.
I went bankruptcy, and another one, I forgot what it was.
Well, Tammy, they're telling us we only get 2 minutes on your taxes. Go ahead and file if you don't owe them. If it's Social Security disability and they were non-taxable, they won't charge you anything. But go ahead and file, claim that income, and let them make the call. If you don't file, you can get in serious trouble, and you don't want to go that route. You'd rather at least declare what your income is, and if it's not taxable, great, but go ahead and figure that out. And the bankruptcy issue, Melissa, did you get her question or no?
I did not.
Okay. Okay.
talk to us about losing your house. Most people are so worried about, I'm going to lose my home if I file for bankruptcy. How is it that some people don't and some people do?
A lot of it depends on the situation with your house. One of the things with a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is that if you're behind on your house, we can put that arrearage in your bankruptcy plan and it helps you catch up. But you only get so many times to do that. If you're in the bankruptcy and you've already put some of those back payments in, if later on you get behind, it may just be too much. You may just have too much debt that you just can't pay through the Chapter 13. And then in that case, they could ultimately be able to get your house.
Gotcha. Okay, we're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions all about bankruptcy tonight. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Melissa Mitchell. She is an attorney at law. The number in Huntsville, 256-970-4217. You can also check out melissalegal.com to have more information. She does bankruptcy. Will League with Timberlake and League in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And we have Sharon Doviet, Family Law, Divorce, Child Custody, 539-7337, SharonFamilyLaw.com.
Next week, we're going to talk about when you can't afford a lawyer. But you've been in her courtroom.
You know, when we get in federal court, it's usually either to approve an attorney's fee of a case that we've handled for someone who's filed bankruptcy, and we have a recovery. You have to get the bankruptcy approval. Every now and then we'll try a proof of claim. It's a judge, not a jury. And so it's a mini trial. Well, it's a trial. And what the interesting thing about about bankruptcy, Melissa, is you guys seem to have your own language. When I'm sitting in a court docket, you guys are speaking Greek. And you know, the litigator and me, I'm trying to understand, but you got your, proof of claim, all your different forms. What gives? Why are y'all so difficult?
It's just different in different courts, isn't it?
It is. It's just always different.
So glad you got to see it. Thanks for all your questions tonight, everybody.